And I think they can do this because I don't think the Russians have showed any inclination or capability to do manoeuvre warfare. That is, moving rapidly, supported by infantry and artillery and air power. So that's why I think they're fundamental on the numbers game. As you say, about 130 currently in the books. That's a tank brigade to me. John, I think they'll make a huge difference. These modern Western tanks are far superior to the Russian tanks, old Soviet tanks, which both the Russians and the Ukrainians currently have. The holy trinity of firepower, protection and mobility. The firepower of these tanks is immense, carrying 50 rounds. The protection is significantly better than the Russian tanks. A UK Challenger tank would take several hits from a T-72. One hit from a Challenger or a Leopard 2 on a T-72 destroys it. They are also very mobile. These things, although 40 miles an hour doesn't sound very much, these tanks can travel hundreds of miles in a day. And I think as long as we get the mass, they will tip the balance in Ukraine's favour.
Can you give us a bit of a close-up view of how that would happen? As a former tank regiment officer, how would these tanks be used on the battlefield, in battle? What is their precise role?
Well, their precise role is manoeuvre. What we have now is a static trench warfare, almost reminiscent of the First World War, with the Russians dug in. You know, the tank regiment started tank warfare in the First World War. In Cambrai, 20th of November 1917, tanks used en masse broke through the German lines then and pushed them back 20 miles. That was exceptional. I think wind forward 100 plus years, the tanks that Ukraine will get can do the same, of breaking through the lines, getting behind the Russians, attacking them from the rear, cutting off their logistic supplies. And I think they can do this because I don't think the Russians have showed any inclination or capability to do manoeuvre warfare. That is, moving rapidly, supported by infantry and artillery and air power. So that's why I think they're fundamental on the numbers game. As you say, about 130 currently in the books. That's a tank brigade to me. That could certainly do, counter-attacking options for any Russian offensive. But it is the tank division, the 300 tanks that Zelensky wants. That is the game changer. That, to me, will allow Ukraine to absolutely get on the front foot and push the Russians out of their territory.
So the reality on the battlefield is the tank is a kind of a battering ram. It breaks through the enemy lines, and then the forces of Ukraine pile in behind, and in that way they seize and hold ground. And what about the ground which is then taken? Do you not need air cover to protect those forces and that territory from the enemy?
Well, yeah, that's a pretty good description, John. Yeah, once the ground is taken, you need infantry on there to hold that ground with air cover, with also air defence. We've seen the Ukrainians have been really very good at their air defence and air cover, so I have no qualms there to think that they will do it. I mean, the Russians, again, their air force has been absent in this conflict, thank God, because I think of the effectiveness of the Ukrainians. But absolutely, the tanks provide the shock action to dislocate the Russian forces dug in, and then the infantry come and hold that ground and protect it. So I am probably more confident than most, but I have spent thousands of hours in these beasts, and I know how capable they are. And that's why we need to get them to Ukraine as quickly as possible. 300 ideally, 130 odd will make a difference, but will not make that significant difference that Ukraine requires. So I very much hope some of those many other countries who have hundreds of Leopard 2s also put them into the fight.
All right, Hamish De Bretton Gordon, really good to get your perspective as an expert and a veteran of the use of these tanks on their way now to Ukraine.